Phasing. Our proposal is to do the park in 2 phases. We felt that it would make more sense to do this and not close off the entire park, since it is a very important part of Greenwich Village to New York City and of course around the world. That we can just do this portion first. So the blue portion is phase 1 that will incorporate the north-south access, the plaza at the Fountain, the Holly Plaza, and the northwest landscape quadrant. Phase 2 will be the remaining landscapes and the perimeter treatments of the park. And that's it.
Anyone else on the team wish to say anything before we may have some questions for George, and then we're going to go right to the public testimony. Any questions?
I have a lot of questions. Would you explain how will the circle be different from what it is, the fountain, as you call it? It is now with the rounded edges exactly in a configuration as I am familiar with it. How will that configuration change?
The fountain profile?
Huh?
The fountain profile or the plaza?
The fountain.
The fountain itself. Let's go back to
to me, the fountain is the whole,
Let's go back.
what I grew up calling the circle.
So the plaza and fountain.
Including the rounded frame. Do you call that the plaza?
Are we talking this right here?
Plaza.
The rounded frame?
Yes.
Yes, right.
The People's Plaza.
With the curved.
The curved top, right. The curved top. These are curved tops. So it's really hard to see. These are
Right,
curved,
that's the curved
yes.
top.
The
From
curved
there,
top.
how will that configuration change?
Exactly the same. What we're doing is we're going to have conservation to this fountain and some dustbin repair and some injections to the limestone. So this fountain and the steps that are currently in there will all be preserved. These steps currently right now are concrete. The fountain is called, it's like a bluestone, it's great wacky stone with limestone piers. So all that's going to be preserved and conserved. Take it apart on site with our conservationist groups. Any material that's really in poor condition, tapping around the park, especially around the lower elevation, is the salt damage. So any of that, we're looking at possibly sometimes turning the stone if possible. So we keep the same stone, we have to recarve it. But right now we're looking at salvaging it as much as possible. We don't want it looking brand new. We want to just conserve it and preserve it so it doesn't get damaged further.
Same height and configuration.
Same height, same everything.
And what's wrong with it?
Okay, what's wrong with it is that the fountain right now is settling. The foundations are shot. You look at the fountain today to the right, the brick foundations are exposed. The gray wacky stone is in poor condition. It's flaking. It's throughout the whole fountain. The limestone caps are in poor condition. So the fountain has to be preserved. It's getting a lot of water damage. And it should have been probably preserved over 25, 30 years ago.
So it needs restoration.
It needs restoration badly.
Okay. And then you mentioned the seating around the fountain.
Right.
I think you said it doesn't allow, people don't sit there
Right here.
or something?
Yes.
I mean, I was just in the park a couple of days ago, and there were hundreds of people sitting around.
Hundreds of people do sit in this fountain.
Not in,
from these walls.
around.
But that's only for those people who sit around there who have strong upper body movement. If you're older and not as strong, these walls are 30 inches in height. What we're doing is we're retaining that whole enclosure with the seating, but making those walls 16 inches in height so everyone can sit on those walls. So we're just improving it for people with disabilities, and we're trying to make this plaza accessible. Right now there's ramps that are very steep. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can't go down this plaza. So by raising the grades to this location, retains that whole aesthetic, but allows everyone, even from a person from a wheelchair, can now jump off the wheelchair and sit on that height of the wall.
But to achieve that, you don't need to necessarily move them. You could redesign some of those seatings.
No,
where they are.
if you look at the concrete walls, they're all spalling. They're in pretty poor condition.
But in other words, you could replace them in place. You don't have to move everything to do this.
Well, you replace these in place, you lose these trees, because these tree roots are in containers. You lose all of this with the reconstruction. You have to redo all the utilities, all the electrical, all the plumbing.
Oh, if
park.
you were to move, if you're going to move.
No, for the entire, you have to do this anyway. All the utilities in this plaza are shot. The drainage is bad. When it rains, it just fills with water. So the utilities and lighting, all these utilities have to be shot, ripped up, and all reconstructed. It needs a reconstruction, not a repair.
And what did you mean at grade, from the great lawn, which I don't think of this park as having a great lawn, but would you explain what that you meant by at grade?
Okay.
Being able to go.
Okay, let's go back to that plan of at grade. And you're absolutely right. There isn't a grade one in this park. This right now is Ray's Teen Plaza. It's this cobbled brick plaza. There's no lawn in this location. So you can't enter that location. It's a 3-foot.
Right.
You have to enter around the park and some steps going up if you're not disabled to go into that location. The early question, I'm not sure if it's a question of yours, the dog runs in this location. By removing the dog run, the periphery allows this lawn to feel at grade, meaning flush. So if you're at the plaza in this location, you can see the grass or walk onto the grass with no impediment of changes in elevation.
So you're creating a lawn.
Yes.
In both places.
Right.
And to create the adventure playground, you're replacing a mound which, when I was a kid, had a playground.
Yes.
So why do you need to replace the mound to create a playground?
Because this, let's just say you repair this mound with asphalt today, that becomes a skateboard park. So if you're designing a park for children between the ages of 6 and 12, that would not be that type of facility. But you're right. There were features in this park that were removed because they were declared unsound. There were climbing structures, climbing poles that were so tall that many kids hurt themselves, and that liability became a liability to the city of New York, and those were removed. And this has been snow fence law for many years because of liabilities.
But you could put a different playground back in that space.
Right.
And we could argue whether they were unsafe or not, and they put rubbering on the bottom so that when we fell off the jungle bars, we didn't, crack our head in it.
We are replacing this with a new structure.
But that can still be on a mound.
On a mound.
I mean, the playground can go on the site of where it was. It's just a different playground, isn't that right?
Well, the liabilities of a mound, you can't really, let's just say, for instance, you made these mounds into safety surface, port safety surface. That safety surface will survive about a year at most. And also the safety surface is wearing away, you have pockets of holes and liabilities again if it's closed off. What we need to do is to create a system and play feature that will survive 30 years, not for a 1 year or 2 year. We're looking at long-term use and for safety.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question. What kind of, say, if you worry about the trees, which trees stay, which trees go, and what kind of trees?
Right. Let's just say, for instance, we're doing a survey of phase 1. There are about 4 trees in this location. Some are practically dead. They're being removed. We're replacing these with elms, Chinese elms, that will be very durable. It's called structural soil system. Around this one zone, we're going to have a gravel. The gravel sites are from small to large. Allows the root structures to grow below the pavements onto these lawns. So these trees, in 5 years, will be much larger than those dwarfed trees we have now. Those trees are in containers. So these trees will become magical trees in about 5 more years. And our diversity of horticulture will really be more primarily on the periphery. We don't really want to add or introduce a lot of trees in these green lawns. They're great areas for sunbathing. This outer zone, as you can see in darker tones, are more about horticulture. So in these zones, we're getting more diversity of plantings of new trees and perennials and hostas, your ferns. So what we want to utilize is that people who don't want to be in this space because it's so lively and active, but who want to read a newspaper and be more in a passive environment, can go sit along what I call the outer gardens. So your outer gardens are really primarily kind of informal spaces of just kind of plantings and ground covering in this location. Not high shrubs, we want it to be very open, very visible, but if we want to introduce people to sit on these outer pathways. So as it comes to plantings, just in these zones.
Will, you mentioned gates. Can you point to where they will be and how tall will those gates
Let's talk the gate. No gate in front of the arch that includes the sidewalks of Fifth Avenue and Fifth Avenue. This, from here to there, is 100 feet. We're going to do it as we do currently. We're going to do portable gates that are movable. So this whole plaza, after 6 a.m. when the park opens, starting at 6 or 6:30 or 5:30, this will become open plaza. Replacing the pipe railing and turkey wire, these openings will be 14-foot openings. The heights of the gate itself, the fence is 3'10". The gate actually bows a little bit, so that's probably about 4 inch change. The gate panel itself, so the fence is 3'10". And these gates are very wide. Most of our parks have usually 8-foot openings, 9-foot openings. We want to have very large gates, so these openings are 14 feet wide. There'll be a double wide opening here also, a double gate. You want to have just one opening, you want to have 2 large openings. That's about 28 feet of opening in that location. 14 to 30, 28.
Anyone else? Steve?
Exactly, what is the portion that was designed by Jacob Regnall?
The fountain itself was the entire piece.
The stairs going down?
No. That was an introduction later on in time. But the fountain itself is Jacob Regnall. The curbing,
You don't have the arm stuff?
No.
And then the outer circle, the sort of scallops that go around the trees?
1970.
1970. And what are those made out of?
Concrete.
And you're going to have 2 what?
Granite.
You're making it out of granite.
Granite. If we go back to that slide with those walls, we'll show you.
You don't have my permission to take a photograph of me.
These walls, we don't use solid retaining walls anymore. They become more openings. So in the future, the water now, this trees can't really percolate water because these walls are down so low. So the new elevations allow that to percolate. These openings under the bench will allow this tree to get more water. So that's your new bench detail. That's carved stone versus the concrete one right there. Carved in stone.
Carved. And can I ask some questions? Will you have a utility building?
Yes, let's go back to that plan. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Our proposal is to demolish the structures in the park and create one larger building and utilizing the basement of the existing bathroom facility. And again, we'll come back to Landmarks Commission if this is approved on the type of building and type of structure. Right now, I'm looking at a structure which is more of an octagon because in the park, all the buildings in the park always had an octagon to deal with that. And so I kind of felt it would be a nice element to retain in the future of the architecture requirements to do that. We're also looking at possibly making this roof green roof in the park. And this will have a basement also that utilizes both basements. So we're also creating a bathroom for children also. So we have an adult's bathroom and a children's bathroom. That's one of the requests from the community since we have so many playgrounds in the park that there's really no place to change a child's diaper in a private space.
Anyone else?
One bathroom in the park, one large bathroom. I actually met with Edgar Tappel, which is the original designer of the structures from 1970. He gave a presentation and actually went to his home about 3 weeks ago. And was very excited about the octagon structure. It's like how many of it, that's what they always thought about also, was trying to preserve the history of his old buildings